Zulrah is a foe that plagues early to mid-game accounts with its high damage output, fast-paced changes, complex player positioning, and constant gear switches. This video is meant to help players get their first few Zulrah kills and will propel accounts forward to be able to tackle other mid-game bosses like Vorkath, DKs, Calfight Queen, God Wars, and Slayer bosses. We're going to tackle stats, requirements, gear, inventory, mechanics, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, crack open a cold one, and let's take on the money snake together. You may have noticed I've been incorporating a lot more 3D modeling and animations in my videos. And if you're interested in learning about the tools and techniques behind designing a video game like RuneScape, then you should definitely check out my sponsor for this video, Southern New Hampshire University. SNHU has one of the largest accredited nonprofit online degree offerings in the country, and I'd love to take just a minute to talk to you about their game development program. There's a lot more than meets the eye to game development. And with SNHU, you learn how to create realistic and complex gameplay experiences, program game AI, create 2D and 3D graphics, apply complex texturing, and program in C++, C#, and Java. Courses are taught by faculty with real-world experience, and the best part about SNHU is that it's radically affordable. Their online tuition rates are some of the lowest in the nation. So go to snhu.edu/runewraith, which is also linked in this video's description, to see what the current average annual salary is for a programmer. It's completely free, and after you request more information, a real person will hop on a call with you to help decide if a career in game design is right for you. That's snhu.edu/runewraith. And thank you to Southern New Hampshire University for sponsoring this video. Let's cover some prerequisites to fighting Zulrah. First, you need to have completed the Regicide quest. Then, well, actually, that's it. Note that Regicide does have its fair share of quest requirements like the Plague City, Biohazard, and the dreaded Underground Pass. There are three main ways to get to Zulrah. In order from the most efficient to least efficient, we have the Zulrah teleport, which places you several steps away from the boss fight. Each of these teleports will run you a hefty 25k if you buy them from the Grand Exchange. So if you're looking to bank some extra profits, you can always use the fairy code BJS. Just be warned that you'll also need 76 agility to be able to jump across the stepping stones to reach the town of Zulrah. As a last resort, you can charter a ship to Port Tyrus, just south of Zulrah, for a fee of 3.2k. Zulrah is a tough boss to learn, and because of that, I'm recommending the following gear setup for low, mid, and high level players. The only piece of gear that I would highly recommend having while learning Zulrah is the Serpentine Helm. It negates venom, and it gives you an extra inventory slot for food. Zulrah is a mechanic-heavy boss, and having an item that completely negates a source of damage is 100% worth it in my book. Once you get Zulrah down to a science, you can swap it out because it does cut into your profits with its charges. If you have any questions about the items in each of these setups, leave a comment down below and I'd be happy to answer them for you. As far as inventory goes, you have a couple options. I like to bring a full 8-way range switch, an anti-venom plus, a ranging potion, 2 prayer potions, and fill the rest of my inventory with combo eats like Shark and Karambwan. I also bring a Book of the Dead for Thralls and a 1-click teleport to safety. In this example, it's my farming cape. If you haven't completed the Elite Lumbridge and Draenor diaries yet and plan on using the Fairy Ring, please don't forget to bring a Draman Staff because you're definitely going to need that. Now, this inventory is optimized for my gameplay, but it's probably not the greatest for learners. If you're learning Zulrah for the first time, you should drop the 8-way range switch for a 4-way switch and bring along some extra food in its place. You can also opt to drop the prayer potion for another food, since you'll most likely be doing 1 kill trips anyways. I'd also recommend bringing an anglerfish to overheal before you go into the fight. This means that you're at max HP when the fight starts, and it opens up a slot for your range switch, so you don't have to worry about fumbling around with your inventory during the encounter. If you do have Thralls, they're definitely worth the inventory space since they provide a really nice boost in DPS, which can help to buffer mistakes and lost ticks due to eating. So as far as the mechanics of the fight goes, Zulrah has 3 forms and 4 phases, and it's important to understand the difference between a form and a phase. A form is when Zulrah changes color. She will be blue when in her mage form, green in her range form, and red in her melee form, and will attack with a corresponding combat style. The only exception to this rule is Zulrah's mage phase, in which she'll throw out the occasional ranged attack, so be prepared to tank it and eat. This is really important here. Zulrah's form will dictate both your prayer and gear, i.e. if Zulrah is in her green or ranged form, we should be praying ranged and in our mage gear. When Zulrah is in her blue form, we should be praying mage and in our ranged gear. Stay in your mage gear for her red form, and since her attacks are all avoidable, there's really no need to pray during Zulrah's melee form. Now Zulrah will mix and match each of her 3 forms into what we call phases. This means that sometimes she'll be green, red, blue, green, while other times she'll be red, green, blue, red. It's random which phase Zulrah will select. However, every phase is static, meaning Zulrah won't do anything unexpected or unscripted. It's overwhelming for new players to tackle all 4 phases, so my best advice here is to focus on learning 1 phase at a time. I'd recommend learning her mage or range phase first, and I'll talk about why in just a second. So let's install the Zulrah Helper plugin from RuneLite and learn how to read the phases. When we look at the phase diagram, we can see a white X, which represents our character, and a colored orb, which represents Zulrah in one of her forms. We can use the Zulrah Helper plugin as a guide to give us hints on what form Zulrah will take, what we should be praying, and where we should be standing in order to avoid her special attacks. Zulrah will always start the fight in her green or ranged form. Once she picks a phase, you'll need to select her form in order to drill down into the rest of her positions. Learning the range or mage phase as your first phase is beneficial because the melee phase is special and that it has 2 sub-phases where you also need to select Zulrah's location a second time. Let's not worry about this at the moment. Now, the shrewd among you may have noticed that there's a special orb on the phase sheet, which is half green and half blue. This means Zulrah is entering what's colloquially referred to as her Jad phase. She'll alternate between her magic and range attacks, starting with the color on the left side of the orb. Zulrah will always appear in her ranged form when entering the Jad phase. So now that we know a little bit about Zulrah's patterns, how should we react in order to deal with the phase and form changes? So like I said previously, Zulrah will always come up in her ranged phase first. So what we're doing right now is we're actually waiting to see the next time that Zulrah resurfaces, which form will she be in? And that's gonna determine what button that we have to press on the Zulrah Helper plugin. So we can see here that she's come up in her ranged phase again, so that's what we're gonna select. And now we're presented with the full list of phases or rotations that Zulrah is gonna go into. Now here I'm already looking at the next rotation that I need to be in, and that's gonna be on the complete opposite side of the arena. That's dictated by that white X, and Zulrah is gonna come up in her melee form. So you can see that we moved just in time because Zulrah's already spitting acid right where we were standing previously. When we follow these phase rotations closely, we really don't have to worry about Zulrah's snakelings or her acid spitting special attacks very often because we're always gonna be standing in the correct spot. You can see we're also able to check off individual phases as we complete them. And this makes sure that we don't get confused as to which phases we've already completed compared to which phases are coming next. You can see how we're actually controlling the dynamic of the fight. We're staying on top of where we need to be positioned and what gear and prayers we should be praying. And this helps make sure the fight is as smooth and quick as possible. Well, now I'm gonna cover some tips to help make sure you're prepared for the fight ahead. The first pro tip I have is to always orientate your camera to be aligned with the Zulrah Phase Helper plugin. If your camera is facing the opposite direction, it's really easy to get confused about where you need to be standing, especially in the midst of all Zulrah's attacks. Second, we need to manipulate Zulrah into entering into the phase that you plan to learn first, be it range or mage. In order to do this, we should wait until Zulrah submerges after spitting out her initial acid and see what form she resurfaces as. If it's green or blue, you're good to go. But if it's red, you should immediately log out. This will place you right back in Zulrah so you can try again for the phase that you want. Eventually, you'll master all 4 phases and won't need to reset Zulrah again and again. So practice, get comfortable, and feel out when you can tackle more than one rotation. Next, make sure you're attacking Zulrah at every opportunity that you can get. This means as soon as the fight starts, you should be spam clicking Zulrah to get a first hit in. You'll need to master the art of attack moving. This means that every time that your weapon has a chance to fire, you should be firing. You should be moving during your weapon's cooldown. For example, in this clip, we're using a rune crossbow, which is a 5-tick weapon on rapid. That means for every 4 squares that we walk, we can attack on that next square. I'm continually moving, but every time I have a chance to attack, I am attacking. We're still getting to our destination, but we're dealing DPS to the Varrock guard at the same time. The same exact concept applies to Zulrah when moving between locations on the island. The ticks and DPS absolutely add up, so keep attacking. The next tip is to anticipate the next phase, i.e. understand that Zulrah is in her mage phase right now, but will transition to her range phase next. This means that as soon as Zulrah starts to duck under the water, you should already be switching your prayers in gear. When Zulrah pops back up, you'll be able to attack her at the first opportunity. This is huge to dealing DPS, but is something that is learned as you get more and more comfortable with her 4 phases. Zulrah will also spit out snakelings, which can max a 15. This is why we have a ring of recoil or a suffering. Make sure it's toggled on before starting the fight, and the snakelings will immediately die after hitting you. You don't even have to think about them. Other than that, your only source of damage is going to be from Zulrah's mage and range attacks. If you're praying correctly, you won't take any damage, not even chip damage. But remember that during Zulrah's magic form, she will throw out the occasional ranged attack, which can't be prayed against in time, so some damage is inevitable. So now that you're a bit more comfortable with Zulrah's mechanics and have some tips on doing DPS and avoiding damage, I'm going to run through this full Zulrah kill and explain everything that I'm doing. So first I'm going to take a sip of my ranging potion and then eat an anglerfish, and then I am going to board the boat. Once I'm on the island, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to summon a Thrall and move to the northeast corner of the island. While I'm moving, I'm making sure to attack moves so that I'm not wasting DPS. These are crucial hits that you can do a lot of damage to Zulrah while Zulrah is not even focused on you at all. I mean, look at that. I hit my max hit of a 37 followed by a 33. So now Zulrah's come up, it's in a magma form. I know what phase it is, and I know that after the magma form always comes Zulrah's mage form. So you can see what I do next is I instantly switch into my range gear, and I switch my prayer so that when Zulrah comes up, I'm already attacking her on the very first tick that I'm able to. So here you can see I'm doing a ton of damage, and I'm also moving to the other side of the arena while switching my gear, and that way I avoid all of these poison clouds that are being thrown out. So this is what I mean when I'm talking about staying on top of the phases and understanding what's going to happen next and anticipating that. Because when you anticipate that and you're ready for it, then it should be no surprise that Zulrah is going to come up in her mage form and that you should be in your range gear. And if you kind of get behind on these, then it becomes a lot harder to deal with all of those venom clouds. You start taking damage from the snakelings, you miss your prayer switch, and then Zulrah stacks you out. And it can happen really, really quickly. But you can see this kill is going really, really smoothly. We've anticipated Zulrah's movements, we don't have to eat, and as soon as we do have to eat, we wait until Zulrah goes under the waves to eat so that we're still constantly attacking that magma phase and constantly doing DPS. That's the whole name of the game here, is to be constantly doing DPS to Zulrah, because every hit you miss is another chance that Zulrah is going to kill you. So just like that, we're going to move to the attack move to the other side of the arena, and Zulrah is dead at this point. That's game over. So hopefully this has kind of showed you how quick and easy it can be to take down Zulrah when you follow some of the tips and tricks that I've laid out in this video. Zulrah is a boss which is all about anticipation and predicting the next move. If you're ahead of the curve in terms of movement, gear switches, and DPS, the fight is a piece of cake. However, if you get panicked and start missing phases and forms, your death is certain. Well, that's all I have for you. So I hope you all learned something from this video and guide, and If you're ever struggling with Zulrah, feel free to ping me in game with questions or leave comments down in this video below. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as it really helps my channel grow. If you're interested in following me on Twitch, I live stream regularly doing content like Zulrah and raids, so check me out at twitch.tv/runewraith_. Thank you and have a great day.